Welcome to the Trumpet of the last few days. I am Stanley Farrar.
I'm Robert Farrar.
And I'm Joshua Farrar.
This week, the Supreme
And none of
Court
us own a
decided to
Ferrari.
uphold.
I see a lot
That
of
lag
Ferraris.
just murder.
Yeah. Huh. That's an idea.
The,
What?
This is a terrible idea and it's
What's an
completely off
idea?
topic that I may or may not edit out. Most likely will. But imagine a D&D boss, right? But his whole gimmick is that he's offset in time. So, any damage you do to him doesn't show up for multiple turns later.
that would do a lot. That would pretty well wipe out your crew before you kill the
Depends on
boss.
how much you set the offset.
Well, anyway, the Supreme Court took and decided this week to uphold the U.S. Constitution and not require people to take and violate their religious conviction.
Which is unexpected and novel,
A city,
considering late trends of the Supreme Court.
we're going to say something, Rob?
While at the same time, choosing not to uphold the Supreme Court by not even looking at the Obamacare suit.
That's true.
Well,
They were 9-0 in support of the Catholic charity not being required to adopt children out homosexual. But they were 7-2 against even looking at the Obamacare that was brought up by several states.
it was the Republican Party that actually did the suing. Which means that technically they weren't required to take it, but as a matter of justice, they should have taken it. Morality versus obligation versus legal obligation. But they're still worried because their heads are potentially on the chopping block.
Well, they're not real pleased with the ramifications that with so many people currently on Obamacare that if they look at the evidence and declare that it's unconstitutional, what will happen to all these people and the backlash they'll get from them. After all, Congress might give the support to stack the Supreme Court for the Democrats.
Yet it seems like the court's kind of shifting against the Democrats because of this whole court packing threat.
True, but currently the ball is in their court.
Yes, but they have no good return. They can't get
Well,
a
that's because they
rally
have
going
Robert
at all.
head. When you have
He
Roberts as
can't
the
decide
team
which
captain,
team
are you
he plays
surprised?
for.
I think I know what team he plays for. I think he plays for himself.
Well, that's just selfish basketball.
Yes, it is. But you
I
see it a lot.
disagree. I don't think he takes them. I don't think he plays for himself. I think he plays for the highest bidder.
Though there is currently an ethics probe going on for the members of the Supreme Court, which I'd say it's about time if I actually thought it was legitimate.
If I've learned anything about the government from the years I've been working adjacent to them, it's that those probes never go anywhere. They don't mean anything.
Yeah. It's an attempt to soothe the ruffled feathers and find a way to threaten them into doing what you want them to.
Well, to get off the subject of corruption within our court system, let's look over at the corruption in other areas. They are now expanding the investigation of the last election in many states. It's looking into the corruption that took place and how to stop it from happening again.
Well, that's what all these voter laws are for. The weird thing is Arizona seems to be on board in large part.
Well,
yeah, the weird thing is that Arizona is on board.
Arizona's Congress is out to stop the voter fraud, but their governor's against stopping the voter fraud.
Maybe because he took part in it and knows he's complicit.
Very likely. He may have even been the mastermind of it. Though all the evidence points that the Democrats have been doing it in Arizona.
I still can't get over what they're doing with Texas right now. Texas, Arizona, Florida. They're all enforcing each other. Wow. Florida is helping Texas and Arizona enforce their borders.
Oh, I didn't know Florida was getting in on it.
Yep, Florida's
they've
in on
signed
it.
up. They're sending men across. They're actually acting like individual countries that have a treaty. So they're sending forces over to each other's territories.
Texas and Arizona sent letters to a bunch of other governors asking for their help enforcing the border.
And Florida responded in a positive fashion.
Well, Florida has been fighting
Florida's
against
leader, so we'll
waves of Cuban refugees for years.
They tend to be fairly sympathetic with the Cuban refugees.
With the refugees, yeah.
Partially
with the
because
drug smugglers, no.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, when it comes down to the Cuban refugee issue, if they got caught before they set foot on U.S. soil, they were immediately returned to Cuba. If they took and set foot on U.S. soil, the law stated that they could take and request this. Basically, they could defect because they were from a communist country.
That hasn't been rescinded, has it?
Oh yes, it was rescinded during the Clinton administration.
The
Democrats always hated that.
I just imagine Quasimodo absconding with a Cuban Esmeralda on the cathedral yelling, "Sanctuary!"
No, I take that back. It may have... I don't remember whether it was the Clinton administration or the Obama administration. But it was during one of those two. But, yeah, they withdrew it. Because they didn't want to... They wanted to buddy up Cuba. that the
They
Democrats been
just wanted those
pro-communist for a
signifiers.
long time. In fact, we know for a fact that during the Reagan administration, that Teddy Kennedy he sent a letter to the Soviet Union and and offered to sell our country out if they could get rid of Reagan. If they'd help get rid of Reagan.
Wow, he's a far cry from Jack, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Of course, China foot the bill for the Clinton for Bill Clinton's both Bill Clinton's runs for office. He got the majority
Which,
of the
by the
money
way,
he
there's been a
used
new
for the campaign from the China from the communists. Go ahead.
there's been a new victim of Arkancide. The man who broke the story on the Clinton Lynch meeting on the tarmac has died at age 45, and it's being investigated as a suicide.
It's
So
dangerous to
chalk up another
cross
one.
Hillary.
Thing is, that was Bill
You
who
know,
had that meeting, not Hillary.
We all know that Hillary's the one that
yeah,
does
that's
the
true.
dirty work, or at least makes sure the dirty work gets done. Bill creates messes, Hillary
Well,
cleans them up.
everybody that has stood in her way has died. And by
Gotta watch out for that
reporting the meeting of
Arkansas
Bill and
mafia.
that other woman, it was yeah. They it took and well, actually, there's a lot of evidence that Bill Clinton was heavily into drug trafficking, and and she was into all kinds of criminal actions. And whenever the information starts to come out, the people die.
Well, there was also a case, I don't remember how long ago this was, but the major whistleblower on the CIA being into drug trafficking uh, in South America was found with two bullets in the back of his head, and it was investigated as a suicide.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one plane crash in Arkansas, the pilot was was declared that he died of natural causes, and he had a bullet hole in the back of his head. Real natural cause there.
Oh yeah.
Well, I guess that's totally natural to die. You get shot in the back of the head.
Couple years later, and it would have been a COVID-related death.
Yeah.
There are a lot of really suspicious deaths surrounding the Clintons.
Oh, tremendously.
Wrapping back around to Texas, I heard that the governor has signed constitutional carry into law, and it will be effective as of September 1st.
Yes. It's something like it's actually 7 different laws that he's signed into place to protect the Second Amendment. Part of it being constitutional carry. He's also made Texas a Second Amendment sanctuary, which I don't know how that differs from constitutional carry unless they just let everyone carry a gun.
How it differs is the
the way
fact
the
that
law is written.
if someone, like for example, has a warrant out for their arrest in another state for possessing a firearm that is illegal in that state, and they flee to Texas, they cannot be pursued.
Yeah, that's very similar to some of the old slave laws.
It is very similar to some of the old slave laws. That's what sanctuary states are for. That's why. That's also how sanctuary states for
But
illegal immigrants work.
You know what that means, right? That means
Underground Railroad.
we're well.
Full circle.
I don't know about that when it comes to guns, but it means that we're going full circle, heading straight back to Civil War era.
Speaking of coming full circle,
Here we go again.
June 19th has been officially declared a national holiday. And I really hate what they call it. Juneteenth. I mean, that could apply to June 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, or 19th. But it only...
I don't even know what it is.
Okay, so June 19th is the day that the last holdout state recognized emancipation. So it was the definitive end of slavery in the United States. Legally across the board in every state.
Technically, legally, the definitive end of the slavery in the United States was when they amended the Constitution.
Yes, but that was in January.
The 13th Amendment.
But when the final holdout state, which I believe was Texas, actually, recognized it, was June 19th. Which is why they celebrate. I think they should call it Emancipation Day. And I've got no problem with celebrating the end of slavery in the United States. I do think calling it Juneteenth is stupid.
Okay, I don't have a problem with celebrating the end of slavery in the United States if they will celebrate it as the end of slavery in the United States and not take and use it the way they have been using it as, well, the whites are just horrible people that they used to enslave people. It's like, that was how long ago? And every
hey, what about all those blacks who enslaved people
at one point?
Well,
yeah.
All those.
Personally, I can't speak for others. But as far as I'm concerned, I will look at it as the day to celebrate the end of slavery, and that's it. And I've got no problem with treating it as just that. Just like I treat Christmas as being as the time to recognize the birth of Christ on Earth, regardless of how some people use it as a recognition of debauchery.
Yes. But when we take and we look at the culture, that it needs to be emphasized that slavery ended in the 1800s.
Yeah.
They haven't. The blacks have not been enslaved in this country for over 150 years. And yet they act like it was just yesterday. This demanding reparations that they keep doing, and the Democrats keep supporting. Reparations were given at the end of the Civil War.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the reparations
they
promised.
Enslaved.
Because they promised them X number of acres and a donkey, didn't they? Or was it a meal? I think it was a meal.
Yes. Yeah, it was so many acres.
A promise
and they got it.
It was a promise. Not all the slaves got it, no, because it was a promise they could never keep.
Well,
Not enough land.
not enough land, not enough money.
Yeah, not enough land, and yeah,
But
it was your typical politician empty promise that they should have known they were never gonna get.
quite frankly, yeah. But I think it's a very much that is that, this is this sort of conversation of yes, agreed. Let's celebrate the end of slavery. We can leave the other discussions for when they're actually relevant. They're separate. They're separate issues as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the whole promising reparations was nonsense in the first place. They got their payment. People paid blood for them. Over
Yes, they did.
600,000 people died in that war. And if I remember the numbers right, it was more people on the abolitionist side than it was on the other.
Yeah.
So they have a payment that's worth a lot more than a few acres and a mule.
Well, everything that's worth fighting
No.
for, everything that is worth having is usually paid for in blood.
According to President Biden, more people have died from COVID than died in the Civil War, World War I, World War II, and Korea combined.
But not Vietnam.
He didn't say the Civil War, but he did say World War I, World War II, and Korea, which is no, he didn't say the Civil War. But it's still ridiculous. Okay. World War II and World War I were numbers 2 and 3 on the deadliest wars for Americans list.
And I think
now Civil War alone tops the chart.
Well,
but still,
I think World War II is number 1 for the deadliest war ever fought in history.
Well, actually, it depends on the numbers you're looking at. If you're looking at soldier death count, World War I is actually...
Oh, I was talking about death
tops
count
the chart.
in
but if
general in World War II.
In general, they tend to factor in the final solution, I believe, which they really shouldn't.
No, I think they should. Just like I think they should calculate in the
Why?
death toll
It wasn't
from nuclear
actually
bombs.
part of the war.
It was part of the war. It was the driving thing that allowed the Nazis to keep their people unified. It was a tactic that allowed them to maintain their aggression. It was definitely a part of the war.
Well, the final solution was specifically to cover up what they were doing.
Yeah.
Because if they could have had everybody dead and cremated beforehand, it would be real hard to prove what they did to them.
And therefore really difficult to charge them for certain war crimes.
War crimes. That still gets me every time. What are these things you call war crimes? They didn't exist for thousands of years, and now suddenly you have a convention of countries and they exist.
A war crime is a flimsy excuse to demand extra reparations from your opponent that you beat. That is what a war crime is.
Yes, it is. Yes. Now, I'm not saying everything's... Not everything should be done that can be done during war. Let's take
morality is still on the
rape,
table,
for example. But yeah, but that doesn't mean you charge them as though they're... Well, I mean, they're your enemies. And notice the winners never get charged.
Well, it's kind of like China getting ready to celebrate their 100th anniversary of Communist China. And Communist China has only existed since the 1950s.
was about to say those numbers don't add up.
Yeah, they don't add up.
They don't add up. They're still celebrating. They're getting ready to celebrate their 100th anniversary when 100 years hasn't even passed.
They kind of forget about Imperial Japan and its existence during the 1940s.
They kind of forget the fact that they were a bunch of ragtag nobodies in the in the mountains, running for their lives before the the Japanese took over the country. The only reason
It's
they were able to
interesting that the
take and
Japanese
push.
invasion.
Go ahead.
It's kind of interesting that the Japanese invasion is what catalyzed the formation of the Chinese Communist Party.
They would have never conquered China if it hadn't been for the Japanese taking China first.
And the fact that they won a lot of support because they were the primary resistance group.
Mm-hmm. But the Republic of China
I'm
would
sure they
be
lived
still in
that
control of the whole country. Well, I know they did when the Cultural Revolution kicked in.
Yeah.
It still blows my mind how many Chinese are over there are demanding their rights.
You have no rights. You only can use the left side of your body.
Well, I actually think it's a good thing that they're over there demanding their rights. Regardless of the fact that their government says they have no rights, that doesn't change what human rights are. And demanding they receive rights or demanding their rights be recognized is a step in the right direction, in my opinion.
It's useless unless they back it up with a bullet behind it.
Agreed, but just because a step in the right direction is not the solution doesn't mean it's not a good sign.
Yeah, that's true. But they've been beaten down for so long right now that they don't know how to stand up.
I mean, you literally have the introduction of the lie flat philosophy, which is everything's useless, so all you can do is just lie flat.
I believe the term
Which
for that
China
is
is
nihilism.
viewing that as a threat.
Yes, for our philosophical names, yes, it would be nihilism. For them, they call it the lie flat philosophy. Where there's no point in trying. So of course China's declaring it a potential enemy of the state.
Well, if you don't try, then you're not being productive for the state.
Exactly.
Also, it's directly counter to their push to try to increase the masculine nature of their population so that they can actually start growing their population again.
They can't start growing the population again. They've only got a 2-child policy.
No.
Or have they finally...
It's 3-child policy.
They've raised to 3.
3-child policy. Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's not going to happen. The 2-child policy didn't work.
Doesn't matter whether it works or not. What matters is that's what they're trying, that's what they're pushing, and that's what their propaganda is saying. So the lie flat philosophy is in direct counter to what the state is propagating. So of course it's an enemy of the state.
But the state is most definitely not propagating children.
They definitely are, because they're in a population crisis, and they know it.
Yeah, but they can't. That's the point. Is the state can't do it. The state can't make people have kids. Well, they can try,
It definitely
but it doesn't
can't.
work.
But they are definitely trying.
Well, one problem they're going to run into, any way you look at it, comes down to the fact that the majority of their population are elderly. Elderly people don't have kids.
Not without divine intervention, anyways.
What, you don't think
Now
there's going
they
to be the
view the
Chinese equivalent of
elderly as a
Abraham?
leech on. No, I don't. But they're not good. They don't walk with God, so how can they be?
Some people in China
But
do.
when it
Never openly.
they're underground though. So when it comes down to the act, well, I honestly believe that the reason they invented COVID was to take and get the old people off their financial roles, where they wouldn't have to support them and develop a disease that attacks the elderly. Doesn't hurt the young, hurts the elderly and the sick.
The undesirables.
Which is the problem
The ones
is most of their population has a good portion of their population has lung troubles because of their polluted cities.
Oh yeah, it's a killer in China. There's no way around it.
So, here's here's an odd thought. If ever any country is to become the Cybermen, it will be China.
Why?
Remember the Doctor Who backstory of the origin of the Cybermen?
It's been a long time. Just
okay.
that there's a mad doctor
So,
with a bunch of people who he chops up and turns into machines.
give or take. So, really simplistic breakdown of 1970s, early 1970s science fiction. Um, in Doctor Who, Earth originally had a sister planet they shared an orbit with. They orbited around each other, kind of like Earth and the Moon, but the Moon wasn't involved. The Moon came in, knocked one of those planets out of orbit, and it went off like a glacier somewhere around the outer universe. They got so cold that they could no longer survive on their planet, and they started chopping each other into bits and replacing each other with cybernetic parts. They ended up creating the Cybermen, and when that planet eventually swung back around like a comet, they started trying to forcefully invade Earth in order to take their decent climate back. That's how it boils down. But, so, using that as an overarching plotline, China slowly becoming uninhabitable wasteland, steals technology from all countries around them, uses it to slowly replace individual body parts of their decaying populations and declining population, and then once they are fully robotized and are programmed away from their free thought, they are then weaponized and mobilized in order to capture more organic material to grow their species, and therefore the Chinese have become the Cybermen. And I watch too much science fiction.
And as a aside, that sounds like a plot for a story you could write for Robert. It's a little setup.
Well, there's no point in writing it. It's already been written. It's literally
Yeah,
a
it
plot
has.
line from the second Doctor Who. In fact, it is
Besides,
the plot line of the first episode of the second Doctor.
Hey, it's my project isn't supposed to have been announced yet. It's not ready.
I can clip out this little portion if you want.
It's not ready to be announced. We're not done with the first season yet.
No, we're not. The China's having other problems, mostly infrastructure problems. The They're having a whole series of coal mine collapses. The most recent one cost us over 11 people dead. One before that, 21. And yet they've blocked importation of coal from Australia.
Well, there's a reason they did that. Australia doesn't exactly
Oh,
get along with them right now.
No, no, but they're wanting to become this world manufacturing power where they are the most powerful manufacturers in the world. That requires electricity. Electricity requires coal.
And you know what coal requires? Water.
Carbon.
You know what they're having right now? A water crisis.
Yes, they are. So they can't take and mine their own coal efficiently because they're obviously not doing it efficiently, or they wouldn't be having all these collapses. They can't get enough domestic coal from their own processes. They don't have the water for the process, and what water they are using is becoming so contaminated that it's completely unusable for anything.
And they don't have the technical capability to replace it with nuclear power.
Yeah,
well, or the educated populace to run it.
There are some rumors regarding one of their nuclear power plants. Rumor has it that it's leaking a substantial amount of radiation.
Well, rumor has it she ain't got your love anymore.
Ooh, the thing about it is that the amount that it's leaking of radiation, according to reports, makes 3 Mile Island seem like a trip to the dentist.
Well, the funny thing about 3 Mile Island is it was actually just a trip to your. It leaked enough radiation for your standard chest X-ray. That's all it leaked.
And we're talking close to the lines. And now we're talking more along the lines of Chernobyl, or that one in Japan where that it was affected by the earthquake and tsunami.
The one back in 2011, 2012?
Didn't leak that much. Except Fukushima didn't leak that much either. Chernobyl was the only notable exception of a major radiation leak. It's the only one, and even it didn't have as bad of an impact as they thought it would.
Yeah. But it sounds still more like a Chernobyl.
They don't understand radiation. They never have.
No. But China has gone through and raised the allowable radiation leakage limits so that it will be within standards.
That sounds very similar to the way the U.S. military deals with physical fitness.
Except that they're lowering the standards.
Well, think about it like weight, right? Oh, we don't have enough people in the military that are making weight. Just raise the numbers they're allowed to be a bit. put it on a curve with age, that sort of thing.
It's always been on a curve with age.
Yeah, but they exaggerate it. Like, last time I heard, if you were about 25, you would have more than 15 minutes to do the mile-and-a-half run. You could
There's
practically
no
walk
reason
that.
why someone who's 25 couldn't do.
One of the senior chiefs, when I was in, he had to do the mile-and-a-half run just under 30 minutes. It was 26 point something, if I remember right.
He could literally walk that.
He
How
could
old
literally
was he?
walk it. Yes. I don't know.
I know 40-year-olds
But he's the one that
who
told
could do that blindfold.
but he told me
Blindfolded, really? That's what you
himself
use?
what is. But that's what he told me himself. That's what it that's what he was required because he thought it was
You could
hilarious.
do that in your sleep, but then you get busted for sleepwalking.
Oh, sleepwalking is a dischargeable offense in the Navy.
Well, yeah, they don't want
Exactly.
them
You
wandering
could
off
do
the
that.
side of the ship in the middle of the night.
Uh,
We put too much money into you for you to go this way.
it's amazing though that your granddad never got caught sleepwalking in the Navy.
I didn't know Granddad sleptwalk.
Yeah, yeah.
He did. He did. Yes.
Um, if he did it while we visited, I never saw it, or most likely I slept through it.
He very rarely did it. But one 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 night he took and woke up when somebody walked up to him, and he was standing in front of his locker. He had fully gotten dressed for watch, and the watch came through and said, "Farrar, you're not supposed to be on watch for another 3 hours." And he said, "Oh, well, if that's the case, I'll go back to bed then." They never knew that that they had just woke him up. uh, Another time, and he went to sleep thinking about wondering whether or not he had rolled the windows up on his car. And according to granddad, my granddad, not yours, my dad got up out of bed, went outside, and rolled down all the windows on his car. And then went back to bed.
Please tell me it rained.
All this asleep.
Please tell me it rained.
I don't know, but my dad said that he woke up the next day with all his windows all the way down.
And his dad didn't say a thing.
Didn't say a thing to him. So yeah, but he never got caught, so he never got discharged for it.
Well, I don't think he'd be torn up if he did get discharged from it. To hear him tell it, the only reason why he joined was to avoid being drafted.
That was, yes. Uh, Now, you mentioned Australia. Well, just in the last few days, Australia went through a major internet outage that affected their banking system. It took down the Australia Reserve Bank. It took down all their major banks. All their major banks went down. And so did several other businesses. And at the same time, though they say they don't know if they're connected or not, most of the major American airlines went down because of the internet outage. Now, less than a week before
Just American
that,
Airlines, not Southwest. Or...
So, what I'm getting out of this is some organization was
Delta,
banking
American
on pulling
Airlines,
this off on the fly.
Southwest. Possibly. And like I said, less than a week before, or there was an internet outage here in the United States that took out government sites, Amazon, and all the major news networks.
Oh, wow! I see so many people shedding tears over that.
The thing is it sounds coordinated to me. The news media is pushing it off as being, well, it's these little hubs, these companies that run the hubs. The problem is that those networks have so many redundancies that that they should never go down unless they're brought down.
And even then, if they do go down, it's only going to
But
be a
let's say
couple servers. It's not going to be the entire internet.
Yeah, and it was the entire internet. So normally you'd lose a server here or a server there, but they and if it's just somebody put in some wrong code into one of the servers, that would just bring one server down. It wouldn't bring the whole network down. Their ignorance on how those networks work is remarkable. But Biden, with his meeting with the Russians, gave the Russians a several hundred item list of things they were not to attack here in the United States with cyber attack.
So he gave them a target list.
He basically, yes, he gave them a target list, a how to damage the United States and bring it down.
Moron.
I think brain dead is closer in this case. He is a mental health. Well, he should be a mental health patient
what
after
you
all.
want out of a puppet.
He's not even a good puppet. A good puppet says what you want him to say. He goes off on tangents.
Well, he's no worse than Pinocchio.
Yeah, but Pinocchio was not a good puppet. Pinocchio was out of control.
Yeah, but he wasn't a good boy either.
Well, Biden's not a good president either. He's a
Can't be a
decrepit
good puppet and a good
old
president at
man
the
that
same
should be in
time.
nursing. And then you've got people like Tim Pool say, I'm sure people are regretting they voted for Biden now. They didn't vote for him in the first place. He didn't get elected by the American people. He got elected by a bunch of crooks that stuffed the ballot box. They went out of their way to enable fraud. And yes, I know I just said something that is banned on YouTube.
We've said it before. They haven't banned us yet. I don't think they're paying attention. Not to us.
They're probably not. We're not a big player. But the very fact that we got this feeble old man over there representing us that can't find his way to the cafeteria without somebody going and hunting him up and leading him by his hand back over to where he belongs. And yes, that happened.
No, I think I've seen that
And
scene before. In a nursing home.
yes, if he had any faculty whatsoever still, Macron or whatever his name is, the Prime Minister of France, would not have been in his face with his finger stuck in his face, screaming at him and making demands at that G7 meeting. He wouldn't have had the guts to do it. It's not exactly like the French are known for their courage.
I don't know,
And
maybe he
he's
was
worse than
feeling
most.
froggy.
If it had been Trump, Trump would have looked over and said, "You really want to jump, Froggy?" but but instead, we have this imbecile representing our country, and the media is even having difficulties propping him up. And the media doesn't even like Kamala Harris.
No one likes Kamala Harris. Doesn't matter which side
It's
of
a
the
It's
horrible
aisle.
looking like
Harris
she
is
may
in
become the next president. Because
Yeah.
you know Biden's not going to last 4 years.
very well.
Yeah, not even close.
Horrible Harris may be the next president in the next few months. After all, Pelosi started laying the groundwork to remove the president with the consent of the vice president back during the end of the Trump administration. And it was all getting ready for Biden.
Hmm.
Because they knew they couldn't get the vice president with Trump to agree to get rid of Trump. So it had to be preparing for Biden.
Yeah.
Now, the Constitution says that to get rid of a president that way, that you have to have support of the vice president, cabinet, 2/3 of the House, and 2/3 of the Senate, or their delegated representatives.
So the Republicans are in a
So,
bit of an odd spot
so
to where if it goes through, they have to block it.
yeah,
Yes.
It's a really awkward spot to be in.
Because Harris is a worse option than Biden.
So
And
basically
if they really want to
go on.
if they really want to win support for it, they need their spineless little leader, Mitch McConnell, to get up on that stage and openly say that Harris is a worse option than Biden. Not even mince words, not beat around the bush, just openly say that she's worse than a old man who's losing his mind.
Yeah, that's really what's needed. The thing about it is what Pelosi has done is she set up a committee to represent the House of Representatives on the subject, so it doesn't have to go to the full House, being she knows she can't get a 2/3 vote of the House.
So she's just going to bypass it.
She's just going to bypass it by having these representatives of the House make the decision.
Though,
but then it still has to go to the Senate.
Knowing Pelosi, though, she's going to make sure Kamala gets Arkansas-cited and then take the throne for herself.
She wouldn't need to.
Probably.
I don't think she'd need to. Because they'd be so desperate to get Kamala out of office that they might be able to swing impeachment votes against her.
You need a justification for impeachment. Even if it's flimsy, you need one.
They'll find one. They'll find one.
How about taking and holding people beyond their time in prison to use them as slave labor? It's a crime, and she did it.
Yeah.
But you could argue she didn't do it while in office.
You could also argue that since she had office, since she received office after that, she now has political immunity, which they've done before.
You have to. They can argue that she's committed this crime in the past. In order to try her for this crime, we have to remove her from office.
That actually is a pretty good argument. I have to admit. But you could also do the flip side and say, why are you only doing this now? You could have done it a long time ago.
Oh, that would be the argument, yes. I said that would be the argument, but that could still be done, though, with her. And you could probably get 2/3 of a vote in both the House and the Senate to remove Kamala Harris. Because the Republicans might be on board for it.
Which is, of course, what Pelosi would be
counting. At the same time, yes. Which means they need to not do it. Because the Republicans need to make the Democrats look as bad as possible. And how do you do that? You let Kamala Harris. You make sure that Kamala Harris stays in office.
You're saying that as if Pelosi wouldn't be just as bad, if not worse.
Touche.
I think Pelosi would be worse.
Touche. She's not a good politician. Neither of them are good politicians.
You take and remove the senile old man. You remove the corrupt wannabe. Place the senile old woman in place.
The corrupt
and
wannabe
then you've tainted the Democrat Party.
She's like the cross between two of them.
She's like
and you've therefore tainted the Democrat Party to such a degree they won't recover for years.
Yep. And being that the Democrats control both the House and the Senate, the impeachment would be the Democrats impeaching her, not the Republicans.
So what I'm getting out of this is the Republicans just should just play along and let the whole thing play out.
Yeah.
Or take him block and make it where he has to stay in. But I think more damage would be done to the Democrat Party if they took and.
Yeah, but more damage would be done to
Well, I
the
think
country
it's
as well.
You,
I think it would be better to block it at stage one.
that's true.
I think it's a win-win no matter what for the Republican Party.
For the Republican Party, yes,
They
but
could
the
even-
country is not the Republican Party.
It's true.
That's true.
And honestly, I couldn't care
Now,
less
I
what the
will
Republican Party would benefit from. I'm more interested in what the country would benefit from. So it needs
Well,
to
the
be
country
blocked
wouldn't
at
benefit
stage
from
one.
any of these. the country
Yes,
wouldn't
the
benefit
country
from
wouldn't
any of
benefit
these,
from
but it
any
would
of these,
benefit
but
them.
it would be damaged the least if it was blocked in stage one.
Yeah.
Let's face it. The best thing that could happen to the country right now is if Biden, Harris, and Pelosi and all the cabinet took and met their end in a fiery crash.
I disagree.
You would have Buddy Holly them.
I think it would be better if. I think it would be better if the southern states just left. That would be the best, the most beneficial thing to the country. If all the red states just left.
Well, those aren't all Southern, but yeah, the red states leaving would be a better.
Well, yeah, that's why I
the
changed it to the
politicians
red
don't have
states.
guts to do that.
Not even in Texas, they don't have the
They're
guts to do
starting.
that. Sadly, the cowards.
Actually, I'm not. They're being blocked by one congressman in Texas. That's all that's keeping it from coming to a vote of the people is one congressman.
Well, that congressman
Somehow
is a
he's-
coward and knows what will happen.
He and they're looking at ways to get around him because he's blocking it from coming to the floor because he's got it stuck in committee. If they can get it out
That's
of
why you don't
committee into
use the committee system.
But they do use
Committee system is a bureaucratic tool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so is the filibuster,
And
but it's done
right now it's stuck.
a lot of harm and good.
Yeah, it's true.
I still say when it comes to the filibuster, make them filibuster. Don't just say, well, we don't have 60 votes, therefore it'll never break filibuster, so we can't let it go through. No, put it out there and say filibuster it. Let's see you filibuster it. But you talk until the time runs out.
Man, I need to see that that movie again. I need to see Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Back then, you had a filibuster in the House of Representatives, too. It wasn't just in the Senate.
Do I watch too many movies? I think I watch too many movies. I've referenced at least 4 in this episode alone, and we've only been doing this an hour. And that's, granted, that's if you count Doctor Who, but Doctor Who is a pretty massive reference.
But that's not a movie, that's
Yeah.
a TV show.
It has movies.
It did have some movies.
It has. I thought it only had one movie.
No. You've got the 3
Two.
Doctors. You've got the 5
Three, I can think of
Doctors.
three.
You've got
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You've got the 7th Doctor movie. No,
Well,
8th Doctor movie.
You, you you have the Peter Cushing Doctor Who movie, which were actual theater movies. You had the one done by the Americans.
Yeah, that was the 8th Doctor one.
I think there was at least 2 Peter Cushing ones. Yeah, I think there was at least 2 Peter Cushing movies, and then you have the 8th Doctor, and then you've got the 5 Doctors, 7 Doctors. But I wasn't sure those weren't episodes.
They weren't episodes. They were feature length. They were probably direct to video,
Okay.
but they were feature length. We should probably wrap it up, though. We are over an hour.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, Josh, wrap us up.
All right, bye.